I never thought a Saturday afternoon with a mower in my hands would change the way I looked at her forever. The air smelled of cut grass, warm and sharp, clinging to my shirt as the sun leaned heavy on the back of my neck. That's when I saw her, standing on the edge of the porch, arms folded loosely, watching me with a gaze that felt far heavier than the sunlight. She wasn't just my boss. She was her, the woman who carried every room with the kind of quiet gravity that made people straighten their backs without even knowing why. At 48, she didn't try to look younger. She carried herself like someone who knew exactly the effect she had when she tilted her head, when her lips curved just slightly as if she knew something you didn't. And still, there was a softness around her eyes, something almost fragile hiding behind that polished steel exterior. I shouldn't have noticed it, but I did. I always did. I shut the mower down, pulling off my gloves, buying myself a second to breathe. My hands were dirty, sweat crawling down my temples, but she didn't seem to mind. She stepped down one wooden stair, then another, her heels clicking against the porch as if the world had gone quiet just to listen. "You work too hard," she said, her voice lower than I remembered, touched with a husk that made my throat go dry. "I don't mind," I replied quickly, maybe too quickly. My voice cracked, and I hated that it did. "Keeps me busy." Her smile was the kind that lasted longer in the air than on her lips. She reached out, brushing a speck of grass off my forearm with her fingertips. The touch should have been nothing, it was barely there, but my whole body tightened like it had been struck. I should have said something, anything. But words clotted in my mouth. She seemed to notice. Her eyes stayed on mine a second too long, then flicked away, as if even she wasn't sure she meant to look like that. "Come inside," she murmured, almost like it wasn't a suggestion at all. I followed. The house was cooler, shaded against the afternoon heat, but the air inside felt thick, close. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge, the creak of the floor beneath her steps, every sound magnified. She walked ahead of me, and I tried not to notice how my gaze lingered on her, how her confidence made my chest tighten in ways I didn't have words for. When she turned back, I nearly collided into her. We were suddenly close, too close. I smelled her perfume, something dark and floral, like night blooming into morning. Her hand lifted as though she might steady me, but instead, she let her fingers rest against my shirt front for a second that felt like a lifetime. "You're tense," she whispered. My voice caught. I wasn't sure what I was about to say, but the truth slipped out anyway. "You make me tense." Her eyes searched mine, quiet, unreadable. Then, slowly, she leaned closer, her breath grazing my ear. "Good." I didn't move. Couldn't. The space between us was charged, my pulse beating too loud in my ears. And just as her lips parted, as if another word was about to break the silence, the front door creaked open behind us. We both froze. The door swung wider, and for a heartbeat I thought someone had come in. But it was just the wind, catching it, stirring the silence into something heavier. She didn't move right away. Her hand lingered against my chest, as if she hadn't realized it was still there. Then she withdrew slowly, smoothing her skirt, reclaiming the distance she had almost given away. "You startled me," I said, though my voice was uneven. Her lips curved faintly. "Then you should learn to expect me." It was teasing, almost careless, but her eyes betrayed her. For the first time I saw it, the flicker of something underneath her poise. Not nerves, exactly. More like restraint. I sat down at her kitchen table, kneading the anchor of wood beneath my palms. She poured water into 2 glasses, sliding one across to me. Her fingers brushed mine in the handoff, deliberate, not an accident. I drank too quickly, just to mask the heat building in my chest. "Do you live alone?" I asked, and regretted it immediately. "Yes." The word was soft, clipped. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. "Divorced. Years ago." A pause. "The house is quiet most days." "Too quiet." I nodded, unsure if she wanted me to say more. My mind flashed back to the office, the way people looked at her like she was carved from marble, untouchable, enviable, always in control. But here, in her kitchen with afternoon light painting the edge of her cheekbone, she didn't look untouchable. She looked tired of being strong. "And you?" she asked, tilting her head. I laughed under my breath. "Not much to tell. A couple of girlfriends, nothing that stuck." They said I was distracted. "Were you?" I met her gaze. Maybe I was looking in the wrong direction. The silence that followed was too thick to breathe through. Her lips parted, then closed again, as though she had almost said something reckless. Instead, she walked over and set her hand lightly on my shoulder. The weight of it was nothing, but my whole body went rigid. "You should be careful saying things like that," she murmured. "Why?" My voice was lower than I meant. Her thumb moved absent-mindedly, brushing the fabric of my shirt. "Because people will notice. And they won't understand." The words should have cooled me, but they didn't. They only sharpened the awareness that we were standing on a line neither of us should cross, but both of us already had. Her hand slipped away, but the warmth of it lingered. She walked toward the window, gazing out at the lawn I'd left half-mowed, the sunlight still catching on the blades of grass. "It's a mistake," she said finally, though it sounded more like she was reminding herself than telling me. I stood. I don't know why, maybe to prove I wasn't afraid of mistakes. I took a step closer, then another, until I was just behind her. She didn't turn, but I saw her shoulders tighten, then soften, as if she had decided not to run. When I reached out, I didn't touch her skin, just the sleeve of her blouse. My fingertips brushed the fabric lightly, a question I didn't dare ask aloud. She didn't move away. And that stillness, that unspoken permission, felt like the loudest answer I'd ever heard. Her blouse was still warm beneath my fingertips when the sharp trill of a phone broke through the quiet. The sound made us both flinch, her stepping forward, me pulling my hand back too quickly, as though the air itself had caught us. She glanced at the counter. The screen of her phone lit up, someone from work. She let it ring once, twice, then finally silenced it with a quick tap. "You should go," she said, though she didn't sound like she meant it. I swallowed. "Do you want me to?" Her eyes flicked to mine, and for a fraction of a second I saw the answer before she forced it away. She turned, busying herself with straightening papers on the counter, moving things that didn't need moving. The silence stretched. My pulse thudded against my ribs like it wanted out. I stepped closer. "You don't have to pretend with me." She froze, the papers still in her hands. Then, slowly, she set them down. "And what am I pretending exactly?" "That this..." I broke off, my voice dropping. "That this doesn't matter." The room was too quiet. My words felt reckless, but I couldn't take them back. Her breath caught, barely audible, and she finally turned to face me. For once, she didn't have her armor on. No polished smile, no CO detachment. Just her, raw, uncertain, but standing her ground. "You're young," she said, each word deliberate. "You don't know what people will say." "I don't care what people say." Her laugh was soft, almost bitter. "You will. One day." I shook my head. "Not about this." The air between us thickened. She stepped closer, as if pulled against her better judgment, until the edge of the counter pressed into her hip. I could feel the heat of her body even with the last inches of space between us. Her hand lifted, almost unconsciously, brushing against my jaw before she realized what she was doing. She pulled back instantly, but the ghost of her touch burned on my skin. The sound of footsteps echoed faintly outside, the crunch of gravel on the driveway. We both stiffened. She moved toward the window, peering through the blinds. "Delivery truck," she whispered, more to herself than to me. Relief washed across her face, but it was laced with something else, fear. When she turned back, she was too close. Our faces nearly brushed, breath mingling. For a second, I thought she would give in, let the tension snap. My hand lifted, almost touching her waist. But she tilted her head just slightly, denying the kiss, her lips a breath away from mine. The refusal wasn't rejection, it was hesitation. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide and searching. "We can't," she whispered. "Then why are you still here?" Her silence was answer enough. Neither of us moved back. If anything, the inches between us felt like a fragile secret neither of us wanted to break. And in that suspended moment, hearts racing, mouths nearly brushing, we were closer than either of us had ever dared to be. The silence pressed heavier than the summer heat. She hadn't moved, and neither had I. That inch between us, it was unbearable, sharp as glass. I don't know who broke first. Maybe it was me. My hand lifted before I had time to think, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My knuckles grazed her cheek. She inhaled sharply but didn't pull away. "Don't," she whispered. But her voice trembled. "Don't what?" My hand lingered, fingertips sliding just behind her ear. Her eyes closed, just for a second. "Don't make this harder than it already is." I leaned in, my breath grazing the curve of her jaw. "Then stop me." Her chest rose, fell. For a moment, I thought she would. Instead, she sagged forward just slightly, as though her body had betrayed her resolve. Her shoulder brushed mine, the faintest lean, enough to make my pulse stutter. "You don't understand," she said, her voice low, unsteady. "I've built everything to survive being alone. My reputation, my career, all of it, if I let you—" She broke off, shaking her head. "Then let me be the risk," I said. Too fast, too raw. I couldn't stop. Her eyes snapped open, locking on mine. "You think this is simple? I've been the older woman before. The one who gets whispered about, laughed at behind her back. I swore I'd never—" Her throat caught. "Never again." My chest tightened. I wanted to tell her I wasn't like them, that I wouldn't let her fall alone. But the words clung to my tongue too heavy. Instead, I stepped closer. My hand slid from her hair down to the curve of her neck, feeling the warmth of her pulse under my thumb. She didn't push me away. "You're not alone right now," I said. My voice was barely more than breath. Her lips parted, soundless. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She leaned into me fully, her forehead against my shoulder, as if all her careful strength had cracked. I wrapped my arms around her without thinking. She fit there too easily, too naturally, her perfume filling my lungs until it felt like I couldn't breathe without it. "This is wrong," she murmured into my shirt. "Then let it be wrong," I whispered back, my lips at her temple. The world seemed to narrow to nothing but her warmth pressed against me, the soft tremor of her breath, the way her fingers clutched faintly at my side as though she needed something to hold on to. When she finally lifted her head, we were closer than we had ever been. Her eyes glistened, fear, longing, something she didn't want me to see but couldn't hide. Neither of us spoke. My hand brushed her jaw again, tilting her face upward. Her lips hovered a breath away from mine, trembling, waiting, and just as I leaned in, her phone buzzed violently on the counter. She froze. I didn't move. The sound filled the room, relentless, a wall between us. She closed her eyes, whispering a single word that carried everything she was too afraid to say. "Please!" The buzzing phone wouldn't stop. She pulled away at last, almost stumbling as she reached for it. Her hands shook when she grabbed the device, and I caught the faintest glimpse of the name flashing on the screen before she angled it away. His name. Her ex-husband. I'd heard rumors at work. Whispers that he still called sometimes, drunk, angry, or worse, pleading. She had never confirmed it, but the tremor in her hand told me more than any explanation could. She pressed ignore, tossing the phone face down onto the counter. The silence afterward was deafening. "You weren't supposed to see that," she said, her back still to me. I swallowed hard. "He still calls you." Her shoulders tensed. "Not that it's any of your concern." "Not my concern?" I stepped forward before I could stop myself. "You let me stand this close, you let me touch you, don't tell me it's not my concern." She spun around, fire in her eyes. But beneath it, I saw something else, fear. "Do you have any idea what he'd do if he knew?" Her voice broke on the last word. I froze. He doesn't get to decide what you feel. Her lips pressed together, trembling. She tried to look away, but I caught her wrist, gently, refusing to let her vanish into silence. Tell me the truth, I whispered. Her breath hitched. And then it came out, low and raw. He still thinks I belong to him. The words lodged in my chest like a stone. She yanked her hand back, pacing the narrow kitchen like she needed space to breathe. If anyone at work knew, if he knew, do you understand what kind of scandal this would be? The CO and the boys she pulled into her house? She let out a bitter laugh, but it cracked halfway. I didn't answer right away. My throat was tight, but not with fear. With something closer to rage. You're not his. You're not theirs either. You don't belong to anyone. The silence after that was brutal. Her eyes softened, but her body stayed rigid, her hands gripping the back of a chair until her knuckles turned white. Slowly, I closed the distance between us. My chest nearly brushed her shoulder as I leaned in, my voice low near her ear. Do you want me to walk away? Her breath trembled out, hot against my skin. She didn't speak. Because if you don't say it, I whispered, I won't. Her body swayed, just slightly, toward me. Her hand lifted as though to push me back, but instead it pressed flat against my chest. Her palm was warm, unsteady, trembling. You're too young, she said, but the words carried no conviction. I covered her hand with mine, holding it there against my heartbeat. Maybe. But right now, I'm the only one here. Her lips parted, and for a fraction of a second she looked like she might surrender to it, surrender to me. And then she whispered the words that changed everything. Then don't leave me tonight. Her words, don't leave me tonight, hung in the air like a vow either of us could take back. My pulse surged so hard I thought she might hear it, feel it under her palm still pressed to my chest. Say it again, I whispered, searching her eyes. Her gaze wavered, torn between resolve and surrender. I don't want to be alone, she admitted, each syllable fragile, trembling. That was enough. I stepped closer, closing the space until her back met the edge of the table. She didn't retreat. Instead, her hands gripped the fabric of my shirt, pulling just slightly, as if testing whether I would stay. I'm here, I said, my voice low, steady. Her breath shivered as my hand rose to her cheek, brushing her hair back, fingertips grazing the line of her jaw. The world outside ceased to exist, the hum of the fridge, the muted tick of the clock, the distant echo of cars on the street. Everything narrowed to this moment, this impossible nearness. She tilted her face upward, lips parting, but hesitation flickered in her eyes. If we do this, there's no going back, I finished for her. We stood suspended there, trembling between fear and want. Then her forehead pressed against mine, a quiet surrender. Then don't make me regret it, she whispered. The sound of her voice that close undid me. I leaned in, finally, letting my lips brush hers, not a kiss, not yet, but a touch soft enough to be a question. She answered not with words but by pulling me closer, closing that sliver of space that had kept us apart for too long. The kiss was unsteady, almost clumsy, like we were both afraid it might break if we pushed too hard. But the rawness of it, that was what made it real. Her fingers trembled against my collar, mine tangled in her hair, and for once either of us was holding back. When we finally broke apart, our breaths tangled in the inch between us. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes shining in a way I'd never seen in boardrooms or company dinners. I've spent years building walls, she said softly, still catching her breath. You shouldn't be the one to break them. I cupped her face, my thumb tracing the curve of her cheek. Then maybe I'm not breaking them. Maybe you're just letting me in. Her lips quirked into the faintest smile, sad, vulnerable, but real. You don't know what you're asking. Then show me, I said, steady this time, no hesitation. She studied me for a long moment, then exhaled slowly, as though finally releasing a weight she'd carried alone. When she leaned into me again, there was no pulling back. No excuses, no interruptions. Just the two of us, finally choosing the risk, the mess, the truth of what we wanted. And in that closeness, In the breathless, fragile silence after the kiss, we both understood, whatever came next, neither of us could pretend anymore. The quiet after our kiss was different, no longer sharp with hesitation, but softened, fragile, like the air had been remade around us. She didn't let go right away. Her forehead rested against mine, her breath warm, uneven, almost like she was afraid if she moved, the spell would break. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered at last. "You don't have to," I murmured. "We'll figure it out." Her laugh was faint, shaky. "You sound so sure." I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm not. But I'm sure about you." That stilled her. She searched my eyes as if waiting for me to falter, waiting for me to realize what she had always told herself, that this was impossible, foolish, too much. But I didn't look away. I wanted her to see I wasn't going anywhere. Slowly, she let her body lean into mine, her arms winding around me. The hug wasn't tentative, it was grounding. She exhaled against my shoulder, the tension she always carried finally slipping out of her. I held her tighter, one hand at her back, the other sliding down to catch her fingers until they laced with mine. "You're really not afraid?" she asked softly. "Of you?" I pressed a kiss to her hairline. "Never." Her fingers squeezed mine, just slightly, like she was testing the truth of my words. For years she'd been alone, her strength her shield, her independence her armor. And here I was, too young, too reckless, maybe, but willing to hold her without asking her to be anything else. The sunlight outside had begun to fade, streaking the room in amber light. Neither of us seemed eager to move. She guided me gently toward the couch, and we sat, still close, her hand never leaving mine. She leaned against me this time, no hesitation, her head finding my shoulder like it had always belonged there. "I kept thinking," she started then stopped. "Thinking what?" "That if I let myself want this, it would make me weak." She gave a quiet, self-deprecating laugh. "But it doesn't feel weak. It feels right?" I offered. She nodded, eyes closing as if she was finally giving herself permission to rest. I kissed her forehead, lingering there. Not a claim, not a demand. Just a promise. We'll take it one day at a time. No one else has to understand. For the first time, she smiled without restraint. Maybe I don't need them to. The world outside kept moving, cars passing, shadows lengthening, but inside, time slowed to nothing. We sat together in that small, quiet space, her hand tangled in mine, her warmth pressed close, and it was enough. More than enough. Whatever tomorrow brought, the whispers, the doubts, the risks, it could wait. Tonight, she wasn't the CEO, and I wasn't the boy mowing her lawn. We were just two people who had finally stopped pretending. And neither of us felt alone anymore. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?